pirate-era shipwrecks, spectacular coral reefs, and a Civil War fort are just a few of the things that call these tropical islands home. That's also one of America's most unique national parks. Only reached by boat or seaplane, it's definitely worth the trip. This is Dry Tortugas National Park. Hi there and welcome to Dan Treks. I'm Dan, and unfortunately, I'm going to be your guide today to Dry Tortugas National Park. This park had been on my list for a long time, and while it's not the easiest to get to, it was finally time for me to make the trip. For now though, our journey starts in the southernmost place in the continental US. Man, I really wish that I wasn't wearing this shirt. Key West, Florida. A laid-back island city surrounded by the turquoise blue waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Warm year-round with a questionable at best open container law. I mean, what's not to love? I'm not sponsored by the Key West Board of Tourism, and I don't know if that's even a thing. But if you're planning on visiting Dry Tortugas, do yourself a favor and definitely book a few nights in Key West as well. You can fly directly into Key West, but the drive down from the cities of Miami or Fort Lauderdale, Florida is well worth it. Each key or island along the way has something different to enjoy, and the views of the ocean from 7 Mile Bridge are absolutely incredible. Whether you decide to make a vacation out of it or not, you're probably going to be leaving from Key West if you want to get to Dry Tortugas. The park is reached by either ferry or seaplane. It's 70 miles of traveling over open ocean to get to the Tortugas, so hopefully you're not afraid of water, flying, or unfortunately, dipping into your bank account. Long story short, the plane is pretty expensive, but it gets you there quicker. The ferry is also expensive, not as pricey as the plane though, but takes a little bit longer. Purchasing a ferry ticket also has more perks built into it, like meals, guided tours, and even free snorkeling equipment. There's also quite a few ways to get your ticket cost down too on the ferry. On the other hand, you get some pretty amazing aerial views of the park from the plane. We went for the ferry, and arrived at 7 a.m. sharp for check-in and boarding. Bring a book or something to keep yourself busy. It's about a 2.5-hour ride each way, with no cell service. Oh, and they play almost exclusively Jimmy Buffett music on the boat. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, well, I'll leave it up to you. Fort Jefferson. If you're going to Dry Tortugas, you literally can't miss it. Located on the island of Garden Key, the seaplanes land here and the ferry docks here. It's the center of the park, despite only occupying a fraction of it. Construction on the fort began in 1846 to protect American vessels from piracy and other U.S. interests in the Gulf of Mexico. It was never fully completed though, and instead was used as a prison for Union deserters during the American Civil War. The most famous inmate to be housed here was Dr. Samuel Mudd, convicted of treating Abraham Lincoln's assassin, John Wilkes Booth. Despite a life sentence, he would end up getting pardoned after 4 years though, for lending his medical skills to treating an outbreak of yellow fever within the fort. 2.5 hours later, and the fort was finally in view. We docked and disembarked the ferry. So now what? Well, that's up to you. You could hit up the beach right away. Yes, there's a white sand beach here. 2 of them actually. Or head straight into the fort to explore. You're free to go through most of it. Each turn, you're bound to find something new. From the symmetry of the archways, walking the moat wall, Dr. Mudd's cell, or 360-degree views of the park from the top, it's easy to lose track of time here. Garden Key isn't the only island in the Tortugas though, and you'll likely spot another pretty quickly from here. Loggerhead Key. It has a massive lighthouse, a few trails through the island, an underwater shipwreck you can explore, one of the best reefs in the park, and is a popular nesting ground for turtles. So why the name Dry Tortugas? Dry because there's no fresh water out here. Fort residents had to rely on collecting rainwater. Tortugas, on the other hand, is Spanish for turtle. When Ponce de Leon came through here in 1513, he named the islands Las Tortugas for the abundance of sea turtles. Dry Tortugas. Get it? Loggerhead Key is actually open to visitors, but it doesn't really see a lot of people. To get there, you need to take a private boat, or paddle over in a kayak or a canoe. And the open water can be dangerously choppy during the winter months. The ferry actually lets you bring a kayak or a small canoe for an extra fee. If you're only coming for the day though, I can't really recommend heading to Loggerhead Key. It's 3 miles each way over open water, which takes a little bit longer than you might think. So, how do you get more time in the park? Easy, by camping of course. There's a 2-night minimum, but the best part is, once the ferry is gone, you pretty much have the whole park to yourself. You're free to wander the fort until sundown, kayak, snorkel, hang out at the beach, and get an amazing view of a crystal clear night sky. Unfortunately, our time here was up though, and we boarded the ferry to return to Key West. Camping here is definitely in our future. The ferry should hopefully get you back to Key West before sunset, depending on the time of year that you're visiting. Unless you're in a hurry, head over to MALLORY Square, home of the daily sunset celebration. You'll get to see a wide variety of street artists performing as the sun sets behind the Gulf of Mexico. I recommend popping over to DUVAL Street too. It's the busiest and probably the most touristy place in all of Key West, but for good reason. With so many unique bars, restaurants, and shops, it's worth checking out, especially if you're hungry after the ferry ride. It's also not a bad idea to try some key lime pie, straight from the source. Chances are, you'll see some of Key West's most famous residents while you're here too. We ended our Florida trip with a quick stop in Everglades National Park on our way back to Fort Lauderdale. We only had a couple of hours, but we still managed to see a lot of the park's most popular wildlife on the AHINGA Trail. The boardwalks are an awesome way to view this wetland environment and spot its inhabitants too. Dry Tortugas delivered on its tropical desert island promise, and without the crowds of a lot of other national parks. Adding the laid-back atmosphere of Key West on top, it was nice to mix a little adventure with some relaxation. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you want more information on Dry Tortugas or Key West, feel free to click the link in the description below. Otherwise, until the next time.